jurisdictions हैं under IHL, they are limited when it comes to an NIAC, right? So these are all areas that are evolving with time. IHL is more detailed when it comes to international armed conflicts. So जिस तरह आप कह रही हैं INIC का कह रही हैं, तो these are all things that are evolving with time and concepts. So basically now, पहले तो होता था ना कि war used to be fought between two states. Now mostly they are urban conflicts. They are fought within one state. So these are all concepts that are evolving with time. But in Syria's case,
IHL will address INIC.
with time, as they discuss now, inshallah most probably will be dealing with urban warfare as a project next year. So these are all things that are evolving with time, and IHL is also a growing body of law, and so it's dealing with things.
Ma'am, if a foreign government is expressly sponsoring and funding a non-state group against the government, does it become international conflict? They're sponsoring it.
What if they're not sponsoring it?
How do you know if they are sponsoring it or not?
That's a different debate altogether, but I'm saying that can qualify as an international.
For example, if a state declares one organization within its territory as a non-state actor, that means this is not a part of that state anymore. So what if another state is in conflict with that non-state organization? Will that conflict be international armed conflict or non-international? But it's not
because see, international armed conflict only exists between two states, not against a non-governmental arm.
irrespective of the fact that
It's based in another country. Right?
state-sponsored terrorism will be international armed conflict. State-sponsored
Exactly. If it's against one.
So are the same IHL rules applied on both conditions? So this is the only characterization of.
Basically, you're talking about the criteria that establishes an NIAC,
No, I'm saying the rules of IHL.
right?
Same rules apply here
Right.
on both of them.
Bilkul.
you're,
So this is the categorization for armed conflicts. There are two types, and IHL will apply to both of these.
the same thing.
The same
No,
manner.
no, not in the same.
Okay,
This is the distinction.
that's the question
This
we
is-
can ask.
So IHL does not apply in the same way to both of them. IHL, as I said previously as well, has been developed in more detail when it comes to international armed conflict, and there are more detailed rules that are laid down for international armed conflict. However, NIACs, even though they are the most common form of conflicts nowadays, the rules are less developed under IHL. For example, when you take the rules for internment or detentions, they are not as well developed as they are under international armed conflict. Okay? So these are all rules that are
How
developed.
does IHL address Syrian conflict, like especially when French forces and Russian forces are bombarding there and attacking
It's a
Syria?
violation. But see, आपका देखें ना, violations of IHL I'll be discussing towards the end of my presentation, and violations of IHL can only be punished as individuals in the International Criminal Court. A state cannot be punished. That is outside the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. So that is something that we'll be discussing. उसका हम discussing. ठीक है? अच्छा, फिर NIAC का मैंने आपको बता दिया that is governed by Common Article 3 to the Geneva Convention and Protocol 2 additional to the Geneva Conventions. Common Article 3 lays down the upper limit for the existence of an NIAC. यानी Common Article 3 आपको बताता है that a non-international armed conflict is, as the name suggests itself, not of an international character, and the additional Protocol 2 sets the lower limit, which is that internal disturbances and tensions, as mentioned on the slide, such as riots, isolated and sporadic acts of violence, and other acts of a similar nature as not being armed conflicts. तो एक नॉन इंटरनेशनल आर्म कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो है उसमें जो आपकी इंटरनल डिस्टर्बेंसेस हैं, राइट्स वगैरह, स्पोरेडिक इंसिडेंट्स ऑफ वायलेंस, दे विल नॉट क्वालिफाई एज ए नॉन इंटरनेशनल आर्म कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. ठीक है?
But in case of a conflict between two civil groups in one country, IHL won't apply.
Civil
war.
wars.
Yeah, civil war.
That can be non, they're non, if they are non-government armed groups, then it's an NIAC. देखो, NIAC does not only exist when a state is fighting a non-state armed group. It can be between two non-state armed groups as well. Okay? अच्छा. Now, as I previously mentioned as well, this is mentioned in Article 1 subsection 2 of the Additional Protocol 2, that there are two elements for an NIAC to exist. Number one, the conflict must be of a certain minimum intensity, and the non-state actors must be of a minimum level of organization to be considered parties to the conflict. ठीक है?
Ma'am,
जी.
How do we define the violence for NIAC? Like, we
It has to
cannot.
be sustained change. So example, Pakistan का example ले लें, that there were many organized suicide bombings, so that can qualify as well. So it has to be a sustained activity, not sporadic or isolated
Is
incidents.
there a certain limit that
This is the limit. You can argue that an NIAC exists when a continuous chain of events is taking place by a non-state armed group, and then that will qualify as a non-international armed conflict, provided that that organized group also has a certain minimum level of organization. जी.
What is meant by minimum intensity?
Minimum intensity का भी यही है that it has to reach a certain level, a threshold of violence for it to meet the standard for the existence of a non-international armed. अच्छा, then we move on to IHL basis for an international armed conflict. Now, IHL functions on the basis of international law's principle of reciprocity, जो हमने पहले discuss की थी. Now, state A follows the rules because it knows that if it does not do so, then state B will not either, right? So this is the basic principle of reciprocity that we've already discussed. Now, thus, if state A captures soldiers of state B, then it will make them prisoners of war and protect them against torture, right? Because if state B also treated them humanely, made them prisoners of war, then state A is under a legal obligation to do the same. Now, international accountability has arisen. The International Criminal Court can hold persons individually liable for war crimes and crimes against humanity. We have seen the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda prosecute and punish numerous top-level commanders for violations of international criminal law. जी.
But what if in the name of reciprocity, in the process of reciprocity, there is a violation of the absolute rights?
That itself, देखिए ना, war crimes are something different. War crimes जो हैं आपके आ जाते हैं when they grave violations of rights, right? So if that is the case, then that will still be punishable by the international criminal court, right? But certain things, is not according to the status of a combatant to a person to a fighter, these things if they are violated, these operate on the principles of reciprocity. War crimes is something distinct. अभी हम discuss करेंगे. Then we discussed that we've already discussed this, that the rules of IHL apply very differently to international armed conflicts as compared to non-international armed conflicts. The law is highly developed for international armed conflicts, but it's very limited in relation to NIACs. Now, what's the reason for this? The reason is that normally जो आपकी non-international armed conflict है, it's operating within your territory of a state, and that is normally considered the sovereign domain of a state. Therefore, these rules have not quite reached the level of development as those under international armed conflict.
The domestic law would be applicable on those conflicts.
जी, क्योंकि IHL is not really developed, ठीक है? And then there is also a lack of reciprocity in NIACs. How do you ensure that non-state armed groups are going to follow IHL? There is no really good way to ensure that, right?
You don't know about their rational character.
Exactly, we do not know whether they want to follow these rules or not. So there is a lack of reciprocity in NIACs. फिर आप ये देखें that Common Article 3 and Additional Protocol 2 governs and non-international armed conflict. अब उसके अंदर जो है दो different criteria. Common Article 3 to the Geneva Convention which came before, that basically laid down that जो criteria है for the existence of a non-international armed conflict, that a certain intensity of conflict must exist, and number 2, that there should be a minimum level of organization of the armed groups. तो Common Article 3 जो है आपका Geneva Conventions का, वो ये कह रहा है कि for the existence of a non-international armed conflict, these two criteria need to be present, ठीक है? However, the additional protocol which has developed the law further for non-international armed conflicts took it a step further. It basically said that now there is a higher threshold for the existence of a non-international armed conflict, and that is now determined by that must be between a state and a non-state actor. Number 2, non-state actor must have control over territory. अब देखिए हम जब पहले बात कर रहे थे of the existence of a non-international armed conflict, we were not saying that the armed group needs to have control over the territory. So this is a further step that they've added in additional protocol 2 to make it harder to establish a non-international armed conflict within a state. And then that the non-state actor is capable of sustained military activities. So they have taken it a further step. Now they're saying that he should be capable of sustained military activities. And lastly, that the NSA acts under responsible command. So now they've added more criteria to the question to determine whether or not an NIAC exists or not. So now if you apply additional protocol 2, it becomes harder to establish that an NIAC exists. Common Article 3 का क्या text है, which provides basic protections to everyone engaged in an armed conflict or anybody who's laid down arms. So persons are taking no active part in the hostilities shall in all circumstances be treated humanely without any adverse distinction founded on race, color, religion, etc. To this end, the following acts are and shall remain prohibited at any time and in any place whatsoever with respect to the above mentioned persons. Violence to life, taking of hostages, humiliating and degrading treatment, and the passing of sentences and the carrying out of executions without previous judgment pronounced by a regularly constituted court. The wounded and sick shall be collected and cared for. तो ये मैं आप लोगों को एक बेसिक डिस्टिंक्शन दे दूँ कि आपका जो नॉन इंटरनेशनल आर्म कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है उसमें अगर नॉन स्टेट आर्म ग्रुप इज फाइटिंग द स्टेट, right, their fighters do not enjoy the status of a combatant. They are just fighters, and therefore they will not be accorded the protection of prisoners of war if they are captured by the state. However, they still enjoy these basic protections even if they are not combatants. They are fighters. They have not been given that level of protection. They still do have these basic protections laid down by Common Article 3 to the Geneva Conventions. Now, Common Article 3, as I explained before, that the application of the preceding provision shall not affect the legal status of the parties to the conflict. क्योंकि जो states थी, they became concerned. They were like, if IHL is applying to our state, then are you giving our fighters the status of combatants? Are you making them legitimate prisoners of war? No. Common Article 3 specified that the application of the preceding provision shall not affect the legal status of the parties to the conflict. So they are not combatants in a non-international armed conflict. Then we move on to war crimes under IHL. What are war crimes under IHL? Does everybody know? ठीक है. War crimes, crimes committed against humanity and genocide. थोड़ी सी distinct concepts हैं, but I'll just discuss that with you. Now, war crimes are listed under Statute of the International Military Tribunal from Nuremberg, Geneva Conventions, and the additional protocols, statutes and case law of the ICTY, ICTR, Yugoslavia और Rwanda का जो tribunal है, and Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. So, war crimes आपके जो हैं, they are listed under these statutes. ये आ गए आपके examples of war crimes. Willful killing of a protected person, example wounded or sick combatant, prisoner of war, civilian. Torture or inhuman treatment of a protected person, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to a protected person. Protected person कौन हुआ? Let's say a civilian, ठीक है? So attacking the civilian population, perfidiously wounding, जो आप बात कर रहे थे ना कि suicide vest, this is what it is. Perfidiously wounding or killing individuals belonging to a hostile nation or army, ठीक है? So that in itself is a war crime. Then using prohibited weapons or methods of warfare. So these are all war crimes under IHL.
So, for example, the guy who was using the vest gun, he got blown up, but like his commander or whoever like authorized him to
war
be
crimes
alive
के लिए
was
जो
war.
है punish किसे किया जाता है? The person who bears the greatest responsibility. So जरूरी नहीं है the person who is executing the order. It can even be the commander. So So उस
जनरल
situation
साहब
में
बीच
भी
में आ
fit हो
जाएंगे।
जाता है। बिल्कुल कमांडर्स आ सकते हैं।
स्टेट आ सकती है?
And International Criminal Court does not punish states, it only punishes individuals. अच्छा, फिर हम आ जाते हैं International Criminal Court. Now, International Criminal Court, it came into force on 1st July 2002. The seat of the court is in The Hague in the Netherlands. The aim is to end impunity for war crimes, crimes against humanity, acts of genocide and the crime of aggression. Crime of aggression क्या है? किसी को पता है? Exactly. Because so that is the crime of aggression. Now the ICC is
Can you please repeat that?
aggression, use of force. ठीक है? I was asking what is a crime of aggression. So can we use of force against another state? ठीक है?
Okay.
Then the ICC is a permanent autonomous court, whereas the ad hoc tribunals for the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda, as well as other similar courts established within the framework of the United Nations, dealt with specific situations with only a limited mandate and jurisdiction. ठीक है? So इनमें difference है. एक ICC जो है is a permanent autonomous court, which does not have a limited mandate or a specific mandate, whereas the ones for Yugoslavia and Rwanda had a specific mandate. Now the ICC, which tries individuals, is also different from the International Court of Justice, which is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations for the settlement of disputes between states. The ad hoc tribunal for the Yugoslavia and Rwanda, ICJ, also have their seats in the Hague, but they are different. ठीक है? ICC only prosecutes individuals. Now, when a state becomes a party to the Rome Statute, it agrees to submit itself to the jurisdiction of the ICC. तो only then does the jurisdiction कैसे आपकी बन सकती है ICC की, International Criminal Court की, if the state is party to the ICC, right? जी.
So a citizen of a state can only be targeted, can only be prosecuted in ICC if that state is a signatory to the ICC.
No, there are further grounds
Okay.
as well.
Alright.
Abhi I am coming to that. The court may exercise its jurisdiction in situations where the alleged perpetrator is a national of a state party, or where the crime was committed in the territory of a state party. Also, a state not party to the statute may decide to accept the jurisdiction of the ICC. So they always have that option. For example, if the prosecutor wants to prosecute an individual from your country and you're not a party to the ICC, you still have that option to accept the jurisdiction. And there's a third way as well. These conditions do not apply when the Security Council, acting under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter, refers the situation to the office of the prosecutor, and that has been done. सूडान के ज़्यादातर जो आपके केसेस हैं वो UNSC के थ्रू आपके रेफर हुए हैं टू द इंटरनेशनल क्रिमिनल कोर्ट. Now referral system आपका क्या है? States party to the Rome Statute or non-state parties who have accepted the jurisdiction or upon referral of the United Nations Security Council. तो ये तीन आपके हो गए referral system. Now आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या जी?
ICC on its own can also start the case.
बिल्कुल prosecutor का, मैं वही that was the exact question मैं पूछने वाली थी कि आप लोगों को क्या लगता है कि can a prosecutor of the ICC initiate an investigation or not?
Yes, in case state does not prosecute that war criminal, so the prosecutor office can initiate the case against them.
बिल्कुल.
But if the state does, then ICC can't, I guess.
They have to see whether substantial investigation is being carried out. ठीक है? So the prosecutor determines whether yes, if the office of the prosecutor receives reliable information about crimes involving nationals of a state party or of a state which has accepted the jurisdiction of the ICC, or about crimes committed in the territory of such a state, and concludes that there is a reasonable basis to proceed with an investigation. Such information can be provided by individuals, INGOs, other sources. The prosecution must, however, obtain permission from the pre-trial chamber judges before initiating an investigation under such circumstances. So that is the prerequisite criteria.
Article 15 of the Rome Statute.
I believe so. Yes. I'm not entirely sure. What happens when a situation is referred to the ICC for investigation? How it goes about is that the prosecutor determines whether, in his or her opinion, the court has jurisdiction with respect to the alleged crime. So first of all, preliminary stage, they are going to determine whether the court even has jurisdiction or not.